Of course, the issue here is that the assumption means another assumption, and that is that Danny's Jewish. The rabbi is going to stop over at Danny's office later and somehow still think he's Dr. Shulman, even though he went into Dr. Castellano's office. The reason he's stopping over is to invite him to dinner, because he wants to send all the ladies of his synagogue to a good Jewish gyno like Danny. He says it would be thousands of clients, and Danny gets excited. Of course, being that he's Catholic, he doesn't know the first thing about being Jewish, so he enlists the help of the closest Jew to him, Peter.
What could possibly go wrong?
Welcome back to another episode of The Rank. I'm John, and today we're going to be ranking the next episode of the Mindy Project. Now, for those of you who are new to the show, I'm just going to give you an agenda real quick. We start off with the Potent Notables, which are just a couple interesting facts or tidbits that I found out about the episode or the series. Then I do the episode overview, which is just me talking about everything that happened in the episode. Then I do the rank, where I rank the show on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best, in 5 different categories, all to figure out what is the best sitcom of all time. And today we're going to be ranking the 20th episode of the second season of the Mindy Project, titled An Officer and a Gynecologist. Written by Lang Fisher and Jack Burdett and directed by David Rogers. Now, this show is available on Hulu, so if you want to watch it before you listen or watch this, please do so. Just so you know, spoilers ahead. Without further ado, let's dive into the rankings here, starting with the Potent Notables.
Potent Notables.
So this 20th episode of the second season aired Tuesday, April 22nd, 2014. So Mindy is still in the 9:30 time slot, but it actually did decently well by Mindy's standards. Last week it had 2 million viewers, and this week it had 2.1 million. The reason that's decently good is that its lead-in was a New Girl rerun at 9, which only got 1.4 million viewers. So it made an improvement of 700,000 from its lead-in. Go Mindy! Glee was the 8 to 9 p.m. show, and that did 2.4, so it wasn't that far off from that one either. As for competition, it tied Supernatural on the CW with 2.1 million viewers, and it lost to everything we've come to expect it to lose to, like Storage Wars on A&E, which had 2.31 million viewers, Deadliest Catch on Discovery, which had a pretty healthy 3.82, and Growing Up Fisher on NBC, which had 5.8 million. But it only just barely lost to Trophy Wife on ABC, which had 2.2 million. Now, I'd love to see Mindy jump one of the other 3 networks in their time slot just once. It also obviously lost to NCIS Los Angeles on CBS, because it always does, but this time it was a rerun, but it still won the time slot with 10.2 million viewers, which was only just barely behind the winner of the night, a regular NCIS rerun, which had 10.4 million. Mindy also lost to an NBA Eastern Conference first round playoff game on TNT, which had 3.82 million viewers, which had the Washington Wizards beat the Chicago Bulls 101-99 in overtime. So that happened. All right, so on to the next Potent Notable. This is the second time that it's hinted that Beverly's real identity might be Susan Robinson.
Susan Robinson?
No, I'm Beverly something.
Which isn't much of a Potent Notable, but it's just fun. Tim Daly's character is the one that said it, so let's talk a little Tim Daly. He's been around for a long time, and the show I always think of him from is Wings. But he's been in a ton of shows, and not just guest starring, but also a lot of guest starring roles as well. Now, it's a lot easier to break into the big leagues when your father is in it, and this is how Tim got into it. His dad, James Daly, was an actor as well. Not to take anything away from him, because you still gotta audition, but you know, it's hard to even get an agent when you don't know anyone. Anyway, he got his big screen break with the movie Diner in 1982 and has essentially worked nonstop ever since. He's played Richard Kimball in the TV series of The Fugitive. He's guest starred on The Sopranos and Grey's Anatomy. He's been the lead in several long-running shows, including Wings, Private Practice, and Madam Secretary, where he ended up marrying, in real life, the namesake secretary. And he even voiced an animated Superman. Of the Mindy Project, he said, quote, "It was so much fun. There were 2 great lines that I had, one being sauce, just staring down a guy and saying sauce. It was really fun. The other one was, I'm not a guy, I'm a man." That's a great line. So I've got to credit Mindy for that writing. She's a cool character and a very fun and quirky and confident and interesting woman. And it's a good set. It's a weird medium doing a single camera comedy, because when you do a comedy in front of a live audience, you sort of know where you stand. If they're laughing, you know you've hit the joke. With single camera, sometimes the crew laughs, but then they get bored and you don't know if you're good or just shitting the bed after a while. You have to hope they find something good there to put in, end quote. So it once again, following the trend of people who guest starred talking about what a great experience it was to be on the Mindy Project. So those are all the potent notables. Let's go to the episode overview. We get another voiceover that's not a voiceover to open the episode, which I'm always happy about. This time, Mindy is telling a college-age teenage girl that she's swearing off men after having tried all types, from the tall white man to the short white man. This is all a speech that is leading to Mindy's recommendation that Jenny, the young woman who's hearing the voiceover, should go on birth control. Mindy calls Morgan in to do the rhyme that will help Jenny remember to take her birth control, which reminded Mindy that she hadn't taken it in 2 weeks. But not to worry, because Morgan grinds it up and puts it in her coffee. This was all goofy, but it was also a way to establish that Jenny is attracted to Morgan, which will come into play later. After this, we're going to cut over to Danny and see what he's up to. Well, it turns out he's dating Peter's sister, Sally. They're on a subway together, and to impress her, he stops a group of young guys from bullying a rabbi. I'm not really sure about this, but either way, the rabbi sees him carrying a bag that says Shulman Associates and assumes that Danny is a doctor, and when that is confirmed, he assumes that he's Dr. Shulman. Of course, the issue here is that the assumption means another assumption, and that is that Danny's Jewish. The rabbi is going to stop over at Danny's office later and somehow still think he's Dr. Shulman, even though he went into Dr. Castellano's office. The reason he's stopping over is to invite him to dinner, because he wants to send all the ladies of his synagogue to a good Jewish gyno like Danny. He says it would be thousands of clients, and Danny gets excited. Of course, being that he's Catholic, he doesn't know the first thing about being Jewish, so he enlists the help of the closest Jew to him, Peter.
What could possibly go wrong?
Now remember that Peter didn't want Danny dating his sister, and so he's not happy with it. We get a great bit here where Peter agrees to help Danny in exchange for 51% of the clients. Then he keeps upping the percentage by 1 until Danny leaves the room, ending up at 56%. Then right after Danny leaves, Peter says, "That's way too much work I just took on." I enjoyed that a lot. Meanwhile, while this is happening with Danny and Peter, Mindy is getting a visit from Jenny's cop father, Charlie Lang. He's not happy with Mindy convincing Jenny to take birth control, which is really weird. Why are you involved in this, man? Either way, now we have the A and B stories. Things are going to progress in the Mindy A story, with Mindy eventually letting Jenny stay with her during spring break, which is a very weird thing to do. And in the B story, with Danny and Peter having a catastrophic dinner with the rabbi, where it's very clear that Danny isn't Jewish, but then it turns out that the rabbi's son sees Peter's dick and is shocked to see that it has a hood. So Peter's family is clearly not super Jewish if they didn't do that one. Obviously, that's where the blow up happens. But even though we have these two stories going on, the real story is the small moments between the stories where Danny and Mindy get to talk. The show gives us sweet and funny moments between them so that we'll all go, "Aw, why don't they just get back together?" And it kind of pisses me off because fucking Danny was too much of a wuss to be with Mindy, and that's the only reason they're not together. And we're supposed to feel good that he makes a realization? Another realization, I might add. Just fuck off, Danny. Stop fucking around and try to get her back, and it better take some effort, because Mindy deserves better than someone who thinks he can just dump her whenever he feels like it's all up to him. The point is that the B story leads to Danny being told by the rabbi that he's clearly in love with Mindy, though the rabbi thinks it's Sally he's talking. And the A story leads to Mindy kicking Jenny out of her house for throwing a kegger sex party, where Jenny chains up Morgan to be used as an unwilling sexual partner, it seems. But back to the subway, where the rabbi saw Danny talking to Mindy. They eventually walk off the subway together, and as Danny walks off, he presumably breaks up with Sally. We see Mindy get stopped by Charlie and have him intimate that he'd like to take Mindy on a date. Mindy's like, "I told you I'm swearing off guys," and Charlie responds, "I'm not a guy, I'm a man." Then he gets back in his police car and drives off. I mean, it was actually a pretty badass move on his part, and clearly setting up another love interest for Mindy, which is like, I mean, come on, just get Mindy and Danny back together already. All right, well, let's see how this one ranked.
A rank.
So the rank is where I rank the episode based on 5 categories: story, acting, dialogue, episode coherence, and character relatability. I rank it on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. And then I have a laugh counter where I tally up the amount of times the episode made me laugh. 1 point per laugh out loud gets added to the score. But before I dive into the rankings, I just want to say, if you're enjoying this episode, please leave a like down below. It really does help me out. But without further ado, let's go to the first category, which is story, which I gave a 3. This really isn't a bad story. It's a little bit of a stretch with the whole young patient staying with Mindy thing, but she kind of did this already last season with the high schooler. I mean, the high schooler didn't stay with her, but Mindy did go to that young patient's high school and get way too involved in her life. Also, this is the second episode in which Mindy refers to teenagers as hot. Just a little odd. At least these teenagers were college age, presumably. But what this episode really suffers from is fatigue. Just get Danny and Mindy back together already, you know? So let's go to acting, which I gave a 4. The acting was really good as always. I thought Tim Daly was a little weird in it. Not bad, but I'm not sure if it was really good either. I know we're gonna end up getting more of him, so I'm a little reserved on judgment there. Whoever played Jenny was really good. So yeah, a good acting episode. So let's go to dialogue, which I give a 4. If nothing else, the Mindy Project writing team is really good at writing a good joke and being clever. There's no shortage of it in this episode. Lots of laughs, but still, I'm annoyed that we're still doing these silly stories, working around the thing that we already know we're headed toward and had already seen. So let's go to episode coherence, which I gave a 3. Danny's threatening guys on a subway to protect a rabbi. It's not the protecting a rabbi part that I find odd, it's that he's threatening guys in general. I mean, really? And then it works? And just to keep driving this home, why are we still doing the will they, won't they thing? They already did. Also, I don't know that I buy that a doctor would let their teenage patient stay with them. I guess unless they're hoping that said teenager will bring home some hot teenagers, as Mindy calls them. Anyway, all right, let's go to the next category, which is character relatability, which I gave a 3. It's all fine. The Danny Mindy thing is really hanging over this episode. I think I just got really annoyed at Danny realizing he's in love with Mindy. Like, we already did this. Just ridiculous. Everything else is fine. All right, so those are all the rankings. Kind of up and down here. A decent laugh counter will keep it in the top 3 tiers, and it had a really good laugh counter. It got me 22 times. That puts the grand total up to 39 for this episode, which puts it in the holy grail. As for the series average, it goes to a 36.2, keeping it firmly in the holy grail. So thanks for listening and or watching. If you'd like to see a list of our episode and series rankings, you can do that on our website at thewrongpodcast.com. Now, if you've been enjoying these episodes or you're just a fan of the Mindy Project and like consuming content about it, please consider subscribing and or following. Like the episode, comment. You can shoot me questions, suggestions, critiques, I guess, if you want to, via email at info@thewrongpodcast.com. If you really want to support us, you can become a patron on our Patreon site at patreon.com/thewrongpodcast, where you can get access to all of our archived episodes. But I will leave you with this. Why did Mindy start out screaming at the cop?
Oh, why is that?
Because she forgot she was swearing off men, not at men.
Fool this man!
So this 20th episode of the Mindy...
Cut!
So this 20th episode of the second season of...
Cut!
So this 20th... Oh, man.